Hi guys, we are Team Higa, H for Hanky, I for Ian, G for Gordon, and A for Aung. Recently, we had the opportunity to experience the life of some wheelchair-bound people, and during our experience, we had a few observations. Observations such as low accessibility, experiencing obstacles, unwanted attention, low-frequency buses, and going down on ramps in case we don't have any much help. So now I'll be explaining more, and the reasons for this are limited lifts, very narrow spaces, and very limited buses. Reason being, like limited lifts, not all lifts are big enough to allow wheelchair-bound people to actually let them squeeze in. And because sometimes, especially during business hours, there'll be a lot of people inside, and it'll be a lot harder for the wheelchair-bound people to go up and down buildings or even community centers or any kind of buildings. Next, it'll be the narrow pathways at the hawker center. Reason being, when you are at the hawker center, you will always realize that there are a lot of tables and chairs that are messy. Some of them are movable, some of them are already screwed down to the ground. Those that are screwed down to the ground, it's very hard for the wheelchair-bound people to move through. Because of this, it'll be very hard for them to maneuver around any obstacles. They won't be able to eat well, and they will be very uncomfortable with the surrounding. Moving on, it'll be the number of buses. Out of every 5 buses, only about 1 bus will be allowed for the handicapped people to go on. Moving on to external influences. There are 4 factors contributing to the external influences. One of the 4 factors is architectural failure, which is this little drawing over here. Why is it a failure? Because while we were on our journey, we experienced many difficulties, especially on the roads that were designed by, of course, architects. There were dangerous curbs, and the ramps were not big enough to fit for 2. The curbs will allow the handicapped person to fall down onto the road, and maybe an accident will happen, and we wouldn't want that because in Singapore, every life counts. While for the ramps, as I said, it is not big enough because on our journey, we experienced that there was one time where 2 handicapped people on wheelchairs had to go on the ramp at the same time, and one of them were rushing. The rushing one had to go first, the other one had to wait. But just for convenience sake, it's better to have a more broader one so both can go at the same time. Now moving on to the government's fault in this. Why would you think that the government will have a part to play in this? Well, I'll tell you why. Government is what made Singapore is today. So, as you already know by now, a lot of things in Singapore are catered to the fully abled people and not the handicapped ones. The government, I feel that they are not doing their job to provide as much for the handicapped people as they have for us. This will make the handicapped people feel like they don't belong here because it will be harder for them to do everything in Singapore. Next, we'll be talking about space and priorities for the handicapped people. As discussed about the government, we already know that handicapped people don't really have as much opportunities, which is actually quite sad. Space meaning the space they have to move in, which is actually quite similar to the architectural failure. Examples will be buses and trains. On the bus, only very few of them have space for handicapped people, and on the train, only a few doors only allow the handicapped people to move through because there is no bar blocking them, and there is a designated area just meant for the handicapped people. And as you can see, there's only very little area for the handicapped people. What if instead of the train being overcrowded by fully abled people, what if the opposite happens? What if it's crowded by handicapped people instead? What would the government do about it? Next, we'll be talking about monetary value. As I said, the buildings doesn't have a lot of lift. Reason being because it will cost a lot for the government just to build lifts, ramps, and more travelators just for the handicapped people. This will cost a lot of money spent for the government, which they will feel is unnecessary because it's the minority of the Singapore population. And that is it for our presentation. Thank you so much, everybody.